No worries.
Okay, it's on.
Everything is on. We're live
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, we need a motion to go back into regular session.
I need a motion to go back into regular session. It's at 9:40 a.m. Can I have that motion from a board member, please?
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
make a
Orlando?
motion.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Orlando. Second, Dan Savona. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Carried. Moving forward. Financials.
Real quick, no action was taken during executive session.
Okay.
Did Rick disappear?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, hold on, I'm looking for him. So fine, I guess Rick must have disappeared. I don't know if he'll be back, but I can do the financials in the meantime. Okay, so these are preliminary reports, as it says up top. There's some adjusting entries that have to be done at year end for accruals. But for the most part, this will be the final information. That we closed on the Kingstonian the last couple days of the year. And so that's reflected in the project closing fees. And then administrative fees pass through, that's just for Loki Brill, and any fees that were invoiced out at that point for the Kingstonian for things like their public hearing expenses, etc., that'll get recognized out of escrow. There were the regular administrative fees. The legal fees paid there reflects January through October. So we'll have to get the last 2 months of the year of legal fees from Joe to finalize that part of the budget. Then there's the live stream expenses and just some general office expense, and the dues for the EDC were paid for the year, also reflected here. Bank balances for the IDA total about $900,000. There's a large receivable on the books for year end. Most of that reflects the balance due from the Kingstonian for the remainder of their fees to us. And then their escrow is a large balance now also because of the Kingstonian's deposit to us for Loki Brill for what'll be the length for construction period. And then Rick just came back on. So Rick, I'll let you know, I just did the financials. You're muted.
Don't know what happened to my internet, but I'm back. Thank you.
All right. That's it for the financials.
That's it, Chair.
Do I have a motion then to accept them as presented?
I'll make that motion. Okay.
Thank you, Faye. Do I have a second? Michael, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Rose, I noticed a couple of requests in the chat room regarding where to get an agenda and certain things like that. So, if we can take care of that either today or moving forward, whatever.
Yep.
It may
So,
be.
yeah, I can just let them know the same thing I had said during the governance meeting. That information is on our website. You can get it there. Also, since it's legislator earner, I sent the packet to Jay Mahler when I sent it out to our board as well. So I know she knows that it should have been distributed to the legislators as well.
Good stuff. Good morning, legislator. How are you?
Good morning. Fine. Thank you.
Very winterized with your hat on and your beard. Looking good today. All right.
Thank you.
All right. The chair's report. So, very, very busy. There's a lot of things out there right now. It'd be premature to mention projects because no one has come to us, but all you have to do is pick up the newspaper in and around the county, and there seems to be a lot of activity. It's starting to look as though we're a group that people want to come to, take a look at, get our position on things. So that's about it. We're being hamstrung sometimes, like every other business out there, because our vendors maybe, or even you can't get qualified people. There's just not a workforce. So we're putting patches on things. We're doing everything we can to meet our deadlines and satisfy our board members, the legislature, our constituents that are out there in the county. So bear with us. I think I give credit to the CEO and our attorney and our chairs of various committees and all the board members as a whole, because it's really difficult right now, but they're doing a good job. So thank you very much. And that is the chair's report.
I have quite a bit of stuff today, but luckily Joe will be able to talk for most of my report. First, let me just go through the normal stuff, and then we have resolutions to cover for the annual housekeeping matters. So, as I think you know, the New York State Economic Development Council's annual conference got moved. It was supposed to be today, but because of COVID, they've moved it to February 28th because they want to still keep it in person. Both Diane and I will be attending that up in Albany. The annual site visits will finally be done tomorrow. Ulster, NH, and Golden Hill ended up not showing up for our annual meeting. And after the discussion we all had at the last board meeting, I decided not to track them down further as they're no longer a project anyway. As of right now, I believe the only one that we couldn't get in touch with was Rocking Horse Ranch. Their project had expired in 2020, but the county clerk, because of delays with COVID, didn't get the final paperwork recorded until January 7th of 2021. So we're required to report on their project and should have done a site visit. I had made this clear to them last year, but they don't seem to be willing to meet. I did send an email to Steve Turk because his team wasn't responding, and I know he is very responsive. He responded this morning that he would give me a call today. So I'll figure out something hopefully quickly on that and be done. And Danny, you're muted. I don't know if you were trying to say something.
Yes, I was aware that Steve Turk had tried to reach out to the office on a couple occasions and they were playing phone tag, but obviously you got an email from him. I just want to confirm that he was trying to reach out.
He's never an issue.
Okay.
Our annual reporting questionnaire has gone out via email. This year, we put the questionnaire on Google Forms and asked for the projects to snail mail or email in the additional information that we require besides just filling out the form. We also let them know about it during our site visits and about the change from paper to Google Forms. There were no other changes to what we were asking of from them. I sent an email this morning to Legislator Cahill because it's already time for another quarterly update to the EDT PHT committee. But they're not ready for us to join them quite yet because, of course, they still have to figure out who's on what committee. Legislator Cahill said he wants to still be the chair of the committee, but that's obviously not up to just him. It has to go through the legislature as a whole. So once they get their committee established, we'll be in touch and meeting with them again to keep them updated on what we're doing. We had a pre-screen for one of our projects that is looking to restructure, and I expect the application to come before the board at our next meeting. I got an email, this one is exciting. I got an email from the EDC that New York State Legislature passed a law which extends provisions of the law authorizing public bodies to meet remotely. And this time, instead of putting a sunset date on it, it says until the state emergency declaration either expires or is terminated by the New York State Health Commissioner. The EDC has been advised by their counsel that this applies to public meetings and public hearings this time. So Governor Hochul signed the bill into law on Friday. Joe, has your firm had a chance to review that yet?
We have not, and I'm not sure, frankly, where they're getting that information about holding public hearings remotely.
Okay.
There is a technique that you can use to have the public hearing held remotely that we have signed off on, which is to have the public hearing within the body of a regular meeting, and that would work. But we'll look at the language and be back to you.
Okay, that's why I wanted to obviously get our attorney to weigh in, not just the EDC's attorney. And then just as an FYI, I've been attending the UC EDA meetings for the past month or so, and I plan to continue doing that as we keep trying to work together on important initiatives. So now the rest of what I have here are the housekeeping resolutions. The first one is for the election of chair. Joe, is there anything that you need to weigh in on before this? Okay. So then Jimmy.
No,
will back-
this follows a format of what we've used the last several years. We have 3 resolutions, the chair, the other officers, and then a housekeeping resolution.
Okay, that being said, I have a little bit of expertise in this kind of thing. I haven't done it for a million years. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for chairman of the board of the IDA. Do I have anyone out there?
Chair, I would like to nominate James Malcolm as chairman for the IDA.
Do I have a second?
Not. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? There being no other people, I need I need a nomination. I'm sorry, I need a motion, I should say, to close the nominations for chairman of the board.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Danny, on a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. The last few months, we've had some getting into the next part of it. I don't want to get outside of Robert's rules, but I've spoken to all the board members prior to this meeting regarding their wishes or their concerns, and asked each and every one of them, counsel, if they'd like to maintain the positions they currently hold, and it was an affirmative. It was an affirmative up and down the line. Can I do a blanket motion, ask for a blanket motion on that, or do I have to follow Roberts?
Jimmy, are you doing a motion for all of the resolutions? Because I need a roll call for your election.
Okay, let's go back to a roll call then for mine. There was no one else besides me nominated, so I closed the nominations.
Right, so, okay, so Joe, do I not? I'm just looking at the resolution.
Okay,
Joe.
okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
James Malcolm,
Yes, me.
Diane Einen is absent with notice. Faye Storms,
Yes.
Michael Ham,
Yes.
Orlando Reese,
Yes.
Daniel Savona,
Yes.
tough crowd, and Richard Jones.
Yes.
It was too easy.
By the way, your pizza sucks. Okay, thank you very much. Election for the balance officers, I'll go back to council. Can I do a blanket motion on that, or should I go through the whole thing?
That resolution covers all the officers, so that would be sufficient, Chair. Yes.
You need a roll call for that, or?
Need a motion and then a roll call.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we hold a roll call vote. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Faye. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Nay. Thank you.
James Malcolm,
Yes.
again, Diane Einen is absent with notice. Faye Storms,
Yes.
Michael Ham,
Yes.
Orlando Reese,
Yes.
and Daniel Savona,
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Yes.
Let the record reflect. It was unanimous. Okay, what housekeeping resolutions do we have?
So the last resolution is the annual housekeeping resolution. It's just to reaffirm the confirmation. I can run through it real quick of the agency meeting schedule, which will be 9 a.m. the third Wednesday of each month. The appointment of you're so reaffirming the appointment of the chief executive officer as me, Rose Woodworth. Appointment of the CFO, Richard Jones. Staff of the agency from Chris O'Connor CPA. Appointment of accounting firm of the agency is UHY. Appointment of agency and bond counsel, both as Hodgson Russ LLP. The bank for the agency and accounts is Bank of Greene County and M&T Bank. Also to reaffirm all of the policies that we have at the moment. I won't read them all. Appointment of the contract officer, also me due because of what the bylaws say. And the appointment of the investment officer of Richard Jones again, and the appointment of the FOIL officer, according to our FOIL policy, is whoever the CEO is. So again, me.
Okay, so we handle this in the same fashion, ask for a roll call vote.
Yes, please.
Okay, first off, I'll ask for a motion to go to a roll call vote.
Chair, I make a motion, we,
Thank you, Orlando. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, Rick Jones. Anything on the question? Are there any? Okay, well, we can go to a roll call vote, but let me just hold off on that 1 second. Are there any questions on any of the resolutions before we move in to it? There being none, I don't see anything. We'll proceed to the vote.
James Malcolm.
Yes.
Diane Einen is absent with notice. Faye Storms.
Yes. Yes.
Michael Ham.
Yes.
Orlando Reese.
yes.
Daniel Savona.
Yes.
And Richard Jones.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just to let everybody know, just to direct your attention to it, page 24 of the packet has the 2022 Board of Directors meeting schedule. Again, it's obviously just the third Wednesday of every month, but just so you have all the dates in one spot, it's on page 24. Chair, that's it for my report.
Rick, you have a
Rose,
question?
Rose, I just have one question, if I may, Chair, or suggestion. I don't know if this is possible, Rose, but could we set a standard date per month or per quarter for all the other meetings like audit, governance, finance? It's been the last quarter, partially COVID related, I guess, but it's been a real, there's been some difficulty with changing meetings, given changing schedules. So I'm wondering if we can nail down so everybody can get on the calendar. And I guess the second question, more for Joe. We have 3 members on each of the committees, governance, audit, and finance. I think it's 3 members on finance. We could actually go to 4, right? Because these are regular meetings
You
and
can
they
go to
are,
as many as you want. You could have everybody on each committee. They just figured that things would get done with 3 and get it back, but I understand where you're coming from. If we only have 1 person there, then we don't have a quorum, so we can't have it.
right.
If we have 2 people there, they're going to bring back a suggestion, but I will speak with the chairs of the various committees, Rick. And it never hurts to have another voice in the meeting, quite honestly.
Just so we don't have to cancel meetings because we don't have a quorum.
Great. No, I got you, pal. And I think your idea about, I'm sorry, Orlando?
No, I just want to say, if we set up those meetings, it'd be great if we could just lock them in the calendar. If Rose could send out
Yeah.
meeting notices now, so if people are looking into, let's say, July, they see that they have a meeting and could schedule things around it. So it'd
I
be
was
nice.
just, I was just going to say that I thought it was a good idea because, maybe you have a couple of stumbles the first month, couple of months, whatever, but after that, mid-year, just before mid-year, you're moving right along. So I think it's a good idea. Good stuff. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into committee reports. Audit.
So Diane asked me to do her report for her since she wasn't able to attend this morning unexpectedly. For Innis, the total head count was 20 workers were reported. Out of the 20, all of them were compliant, none were not compliant, meaning all of them were in part of the contiguous counties. And so their monthly compliance average was 100% this month. We had an audit committee meeting on January 6th. We went over our third quarter financials. As Rick had mentioned, we were a little bit late on having the third quarter meeting just because of because of illness, et cetera, and scheduling issues. So we plan to have the fourth quarter one shortly. At the third quarter meeting, we went over all of the third quarter information, as well as going over an update on project post-closing affidavits. I gave them an update on where we're at with the audit for 2021 with UHY, and we revisited the information that was discussed at annual site visits and what was going out to the projects for year-end reporting. Because this meeting had gotten pushed through nobody's fault, the year-end reporting went out a little bit later than what normally goes out because we wanted to run it through this audit committee first. But like I had mentioned in my report, nothing we sent them was any different than any other year. And when I had met with them prior to any projects I met with prior to this meeting, I let them know that it was going to go out a little bit later, but they should expect all the same information. And then there was a review of the administrative staff time to make sure that the committee had looked over the timesheets. And there was a review of the local construction labor policy, which then ended up being pushed over to governance for some changes to be made. So that's it for the audit committee report, Chair.
Okay, and that, where are we at? You covered the monitoring?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I get a motion to accept the audit committee report as presented. I have a motion by Mr. Ham. Do I have a second by Mr. Savona? Anything on the question? No. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to finance. Okay.
You're muted, but no report.
I have a 90-pound dog here that is chewing very loudly a huge bone. So I'm muting in between. There
Rick
is
does that once in a while too.
there's no finance committee meeting this month, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. On to governance. Mr. Ham.
Thank you, Chair. So governance met last week, and we started opening up with the mentoring program update. Currently, Rose is looking into creating a pamphlet to put out there. Other than that, the mentoring program, we spoke about this in the past, that it's always a work in progress. So things will be added to it as we go along. And it basically, in that pamphlet, it'll outline whether or not the IDA is a good fit for your project. We created policies to be created was the IDA shared fees with the CRC, and created crafted a resolution. Rose, do you want to touch base on the shared policies?
So I had reached out to ABO, and I had also reached out to Joe to confirm whether or not the IDA projects would be able to give some of their fee to the CRC rather than all of it to the IDA, so that the CRC is able to, because the CRC is able to use the money differently than the IDA is allowed to use, and that would give us the ability to provide grants or do other important things with the funds rather than just using it for administrative purposes. The ABO said that basically to refer to our attorney, and then Joe and I were working on figuring out the best ways to word it and to make sure that we were compliant with everything we were doing.
Okay.
That was a yes then? That was a yes then?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to supplement what Rose said, my direction, I believe, is to have something ready for the next meeting of the board.
Correct.
Yes, in February.
Okay.
It was because we had met so close to this meeting, it wasn't enough time to get resolutions and amendments together in order to get them to the board in a timely fashion ahead of the meeting.
That it, Michael?
Thank you, Rose. Next thing we did, Chair, we had policies to be amended. We had a good amount of those, so we were trying to get within a good, some timing on this because we were having technical difficulties also with the live streaming. So we started with the procurement policy. We discussed adding the NDA and the RFP. We feel as though the board feels as though there should be an NDA And currently, we don't have a formatted NDA out there for when we procure services. So we feel as though that not only does the owner of who we're dealing with on the service end should have the NDA, but any employee dealing with the IDA that works for the employer should also sign off on an NDA with us also.
Yeah. Does that include, do you put a covenant in there about second and third level?
Correct. We were going to follow the steps all the way down.
Yeah.
We've also discussed in section 7 of the procurement policy, review of contracts for professional services valued over $5,000 per year. We feel as though as a board, it should be increased to $10,000 a year. 5,000 just, it's a little too low, and there's a lot of work to be done there at 5,000 on most of the stuff that we deal with. So
How long was that number in place?
the 5,000
Yeah, just spitball. What do you think?
since
long
I've
as-
known it's been there, since we had the procurement policy since the beginning of the inception on it. I don't remember seeing that increased.
What, Rose?
We had changed, so the procurement policy used to be anything 5,000 and over, we would get 3 written
Verbal, correct.
3 written quotes. And then when we made changes in an effort to be more transparent, et cetera, we had said we wanted to do RFPs every 3 years for services that were over X amount of money, and then confirm contracts annually in an effort to be in compliance with what ABO would want from us. And so we realized that 5,000 is too low because it would cost us almost $2,000 or $3,000 just to do an RFP. So it doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is costs keep going up, and when you make a change without, and I say this in such a way, without justifying it, meaning why are we doing it? Because things keep going up. So that's the only reason I asked. Thank you. What are we at with the mentoring?
So I had created the brochure that we had talked about. And then I showed it to the governance committee. But they decided that we wanted to do something a little bit more formal, and also to wait until we deal with the marketing companies or a communications person to help us with it. In the meantime, I was going to print copies of what I had so far at like Staples, just to get a few copies in case there are projects that come to us, but not to use it as something for outreach quite yet.
Okay.
From their chair, we have the compensation policy amendment. And in that, Rose, once again, speaking with the ABO and an attendance policy, the compensation policy is going to be amended to read compensation and attendance policy. There was no real minimum attendance from the ABO, but there was, there is participation. I mean, we need people to show up at these meetings, obviously.
No, that's not anything that we really have a problem with. And I don't believe that there's been any times where these board members haven't gotten out to somebody, and more often than not in advance, and said they weren't going to be able to be there. So they think they take their mission seriously. So, but you do have to have a policy.
Correct. And you'll read in there underneath the time and attendance paragraph in the third paragraph of that policy that 5 or more absences per year by a member could be reported to the IDA's oversight entity, or the ABO. So we really want to stay on top of that. Also, we did throw it around there, and we discussed annual site visits, which we know Rose would, we get inundated with those. So I think towards the end here, after discussing it as an entire board and putting it out on emails, we had good attendance for those, finishing up strong. So, it was a good job by everybody. The next one to be amended was the local construction labor policy. In there, it was pretty much just cleaning up some numbers. Paragraph 3, applicants receiving UCIDA benefits that utilize at least 75% labor for their above approved projects will receive, it said 3 points. We did change that a while ago in the UTEP to 1 point. So we had to clean up the language in that. Paragraph 5 also had the 3-point referral to it. We cleaned that up with the 1 point. We did discuss also that, you know, we wanted to make sure that Loki Brill was checking on all the OSHA training certificates, that everybody there had them. There was a little confusion there for a while that they didn't know if all trades need them. All trades need an OSHA card on these projects.
You know, I'll put it this way. Is it stated in our contracts, council, that they meet the minimum standard? Because if it's not, then I believe we need to have that in our contracts. Because essentially we're partnering, and, you know, we're a public entity, and worker safety and occupational safety and health, that should be a bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of our IDA documents require them to comply with applicable law. So I think
Okay,
that's
but-
covered that way.
But a private project, I don't know if it's, you know, applicable law but a public project, I know it is, unless the owner calls for it. So with that being said,
Mm.
it's easy enough for us just to put that in there instead of someone
Absolutely.
saying, yeah. So moving
Okay.
forward, if governance would take that
Sure.
up in their next committee meeting and see if we can make that part and parcel of
Yeah,
our
we can do that.
agreements. Anybody want to add on to that, or we'll wait till it comes back? All right, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting, Mike.
No, not a problem. So due to timing and everybody had to be on to other meetings, we had to table out the last two, the housing policy and the UTEP and matrix updates. But in executive session, we did discuss the housing, and we had a work group that met to discuss different avenues on how to bring housing into the fold here. So currently we have a moratorium, which I believe came to fruition on the 15th, correct? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So with that, the board felt as though, although there was a lot of good input on what was going on, the board felt as though we should extend the moratorium as per the resolution 3 more months to discuss a couple issues that are out there yet. And we will be meeting as a work group again and putting a different work group together to include everybody's input here.
Joe?
And that being said, you want to extend it. Do we need to take that to a roll call vote, council?
I would recommend that. The original policy chair permits an extension for 3-month periods with by resolution. So I would recommend a full resolution with a motion, you know, a second and a roll call. And based on my understanding of the discussion at the governance committee, the governance committee board members also wanted the ability or the flexibility to cut short that 3-month period if that was determined by the IDA board.
I think we have that ability. I guess what I'm asking you is, do I have to wait for a resolution to come back from your office?
No,
Or can we take that up today?
sorry, I misunderstood you. We can do that right now and I'll paper it for the file.
Chair of Governance, is it your opinion that you'd like to go to a roll call vote? for
It
that?
is my opinion to go to a roll call vote.
Okay, Rose?
James Malcolm,
Yes.
Diane Heinen is absent with notice. Michael Ham,
Yes.
Faye Storms,
Yes.
Orlando Reese,
Yes.
Daniel Savona,
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Yes to the resolution to extend this for 3 months. This being the housing moratorium.
Governance, you done or no?
And that's my report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the governance report as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
I'll
Faye.
second.
I have a second with Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing? All right, brings us to old business, status of pending projects. Rose?
Joe, I'll let you take it away since your report.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Chair. If you go to page 26, with respect to pending projects, as Rose indicated, Kingstonian closed last month. The pending project that we have that's close to closing is the Romeo project. And the other projects of note, Bayside, we're talking about a public hearing. I think there's been communication on TDI, the transmission project, and I've heard nothing on Magruder Solar. So that's my report on pending transactions. I would expect that Romeo will close, if not this month, early in the month of February.
Any questions for council on any of these projects? Rick, you look like you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, just Joe, I'm surprised TDI or Chair hasn't come back. It was a pretty big ask and also a big opportunity for the community. Do you know why it's taken up so long? It's been 2 months since we've heard from them.
No,
Well,
I reached out to them and not heard back. But sorry, go ahead, Joe. Were you can?
I would expect that we will get a follow-up from them, Rick. The matters in other jurisdictions are moving along very quickly with a lot of pressure. So I would expect that that they will be back to us in the next month or two. It's frankly a question of focus, given the number of projects that they have.
We seem to, it seems to be the standard operating procedures for a lot of applicants, and I'm not painting anybody with a brush, but all of a sudden the world is coming to an end and they need you to do something that day. And we acquiesce a lot, you know, we're here to work along with, but it's not good business to operate in that fashion. And the responsibility here falls back on applicants. It doesn't fall back on us to make sure paperwork gets in a timely fashion. You know, that's something that again, you know, when we end up with a mentoring program or anything else, we can expect that gap to be closed, because quite honestly, it really doesn't do anything but impede the progress of the project in my mind. But that's just a personal take on it. So thank you, Joe, for your report. Status of pending enforcement matters.
That's page 27. Candidly, Chair, I'm a little behind on this. The fourth quarter of 2021 was very challenging. The first couple, Amthor and Viking, are just a matter of me doing some quick file review. So those should be deleted by the next meeting. Greenhouse and Darien, I've got conceptual approval on both transactions. So I expect to have papers signed and delivered. So hopefully those will be gone by the next meeting. And then Golden Hill is simply a matter of me checking with the city assessor with respect to determining a quote recapture amount so we can get a bill out to them. But there's been no follow-up or no pushback on the frankly significant action taken by the board last year with respect to putting that project back on the tax rolls. So that's my report on enforcement.
Questions on enforcement matters by anyone?
I'm sorry, Golden
Go ahead,
Hill.
Peg.
I've been watching that for the last like 3 meetings that it was supposed to be checked in with city assessor. Is that a phone call?
It is a phone call. And you're absolutely right, Faye. I will take care of that for the next meeting. Yep.
Okay. All right. If nothing else, that brings us to new business. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll entertain a motion. Anybody want to make a motion?
Make that motion, Chair.
Okay, Michael, thank you. A second?
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're going to, for our board members and our guests, what do we say about, it's 20 after, let the record show we close the meeting at 10:20. How about we say 10:30, we come back on for the CRC? Does that work? Hi, Bill.
Jim, I have a question pertaining,
The meeting has been,
well, I would ask
adjourned.
offline anyway. I prefer not to extend a meeting beyond its God-given length, so it's better to wait. when Michael was speaking about the housing, he mentioned that he went into executive session to discuss the housing moratorium. I'm curious as to the parameters around that. How does, what exemption under the open meetings law did that fall under when it?
I will forward that to council so you get the correct
Thank you.
response.
Thank you, Bill, for that question. We went into executive session to discuss or to get the advice of counsel on legal matters.
Okay.
All right, so we've adjourned and we have about 10 minutes and want to hang around for the CRC, by all means, hang around.